So let's talk about the real oppression, ladies and gentlemen. Those Palestinians that are suffering under Hamas, that are routinely tortured, Palestinians that I have spoken on behalf of at the UN Human Rights Council. And let's look at this motion. Why is it that the international community, the West in particular, has failed the people of Palestine? Because of their silence and their complicity. Where are the people speaking out for the way that the Palestinians have been treated in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Egypt, and in the West Bank? Where are people standing up for real Palestinian rights? Because you can take it from me that the Israeli Arab community are the only free Arabs to live in the Middle East. That's why many of them are actually now defending their country, Israel.
Order. Order. Order in the chamber.
They recognise the real oppression that so many of their cousins are subjugated to by the Arab world. And they recognise the opportunities that they have to live with equal rights as Israeli citizens in the only democracy in the Middle East. The second reason that we need to hold the West accountable for the position, for their failure of the Palestinian people, comes down to brainwashing. What we saw on the 7th of October was shocking, but not surprising. 3,000 people do not wake up one morning and decide spontaneously that it is a good day to slaughter Jews. You do not create 3,000 people who are able to cut the stomach of a pregnant woman, extract the fetus before killing them both, to burn children, to rape and slaughter.
Order.
You do not create people who are capable of that.
Order in the chamber.
Overnight. Anyone asking for evidence here?
Order in the chamber.
Anyone asking for evidence here needs only look at the videos that these terrorists have put out onto social media.
Order in the chamber.
Because these are the real war crimes, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason that they are beyond doubt, the reason that they have been so carefully documented, is because the terrorists have revelled in them, have shared the evidence of their barbarity and their atrocities with glee. That, ladies and gentlemen, can only be the result of 30 years of brainwashing in the UNRWA school system. Ever since Oslo and the Palestinian Authority control over the education system, we have seen textbooks and schools and television programmes for children exalting martyrdom, encouraging the exact acts that we saw on the 7th of October, the same ones that were attempted in that so-called March of Return, and the international community has to take responsibility for that, for the funding that it has provided, and for the UNRWA school system in which, according to their own statistics, 3 out of 4 of the terrorists who crossed that border on the 7th of October were educated in. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, this is not just Hamas. The people who crossed that border, including ordinary civilians, and it is thought that ordinary civilians are holding 60 hostages at present. The terrorists included Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Fatah, affiliates of the PLO, the so-called moderates in this equation. Under the pay-for-slay salary system, the Palestinian Authority, the so-called moderates, pays the salaries of terrorists no matter what banner they coalesce under. They pay them according to how many Jews they slaughter, the severity of their crimes and how long their sentence is. That is brainwashing and incentivization to terror. When you promote hate, you reap war. And the final point to address here, the international community's responsibility for the international community's failure of the Palestinian people, is unrealistic expectations. And on this, I take the words of the Palestinian Authority president, currently in his 18th year of a 4-year term, Mahmoud Abbas, in respect of Obama's policy on settlements, requiring the ethnic cleansing of Jews in Judea and Samaria. What was Mahmoud Abbas's response? He said, how can I be less Palestinian than the President of the United States? What did he mean by that? He meant that when America took positions advocating for the ethnic cleansing of Jews, advocating for things that no responsible Israeli government would countenance, he, as the President of the Palestinian Authority, was hamstrung. He could not go to a negotiating table asking for anything less. He could far less leave a negotiating table having achieved anything less than the President of the United States was asking for. So it is in that context that promoting those unrealistic expectations has been pushing peace further away, has been increasing divisions, and that lies at the responsibility of the international community also. On those counts, on the real oppression that the Palestinians are facing, on the brainwashing in UNRWA schools and the incentivisation under the pay-for-slave policy, and on the constant perpetuation of unachievable positions in pursuit, supposedly, of peace, the West has indeed failed the Palestinian Arabs.
I'd like to thank our speakers for their speeches. If there are any questions, please keep it to questions and not statements.
I'd like to ask you, whereabouts exactly will we find the evidence of what Israel is saying Hamas did? Because there's none on the internet. The videos produced by the IDF are very cringy Hollywood style. There's nothing there for anybody.
They were verified.
Order in the chamber. Order in the chamber.
No, you're lying. Can you tell me where to go? They're also deleted where to find them. You know, you stood there and spoke and you there's
What? Okay, that's enough. Here. Here, I have a microphone.
Behave yourself. Oh, sorry, so if I don't behave myself, you're going to nuke me, are you? I'm not Islamic.
Okay.
Hear that?
That's exactly what they want to stop.
Okay, we're going to wrap up this debate. Thank you very much for coming. Would you like to answer?
I'm very happy to answer. So, apart from everything that I have unfortunately seen on social media and the testimonies of survivors, we also have 49 minutes of very strong material which has been shown to the international media. And reputable journalists have confirmed what they have seen. So, if you are not
evidence from the Palestinians,
okay.
not
So
49 minutes.
It's very interesting that people talk about 75 years because there is a misconception that is propagated. It seems to have fallen away in the last month or so. That actually the only objection that the Palestinian leadership has is to Israel after 1967, when Israel recovered territory that had been occupied by Jordan and the West Bank in particular. Right. Yeah, 75 years has been brought up, and that requires an answer. What it actually means, 75 years, is an objection to the state of Israel's very existence in any borders. Yes. That is something, yes, well, some of the members of the audience are agreeing with me. They'll never...
In Israel.
That is something that is incredibly important to understand because it has been consistently the position of the Palestinian Authority and the PLO before it, which of course was established in 1964. Before there was any concept of Israel recovering that territory that had been seized from it as a fledgling state after it declared independence, in its war of independence by Jordan. So it's very, very telling. And I encourage anyone here who actually has an open mind to look into these issues and believe the words of the people who are advocating for Israel's destructions. That includes the Hamas leadership, who have said that they intend to commit 7th of October over and over and over again. That is not an act of any resistance. They have an autonomy and complete self-rule in the Gaza Strip. This evening, there was supposed to be a representative of the Palestinian Authority. Who is that person a representative of if there is an occupation? She would be an Israeli diplomat here this evening if there was an occupation. You are being fed misinformation, and I urge you to listen to the words of the Palestinian leadership, that of the PA and in the Gaza Strip, and in particular of their paymasters in Iran.